winning author Andy McGrath. If you're looking for Christmas present inspiration, you can find details of all 7 shortlisted books on our website. You're listening to Front Row with me, Kirsty Lang. 5 years ago, 2 Chinese actresses living in London met at an audition and started comparing notes about the portrayal of Chinese characters on the British screen. Not content with the roles they were getting, Shin-Fei Chen and Yenis Chung have now written their own sitcom. Chinese Burn is about 3 young women living in London. There's Fufu, a fashion student with too much money. Elizabeth, who wants to be a sommelier and doesn't dare tell her parents that she's actually walking the streets in a cup costume promoting Chinese tea. And angry, aspiring actress Jackie.
Can you please read the next lines as it's written in a Chinese accent?
Hello, my father. I think he dead. I think he missing. Help me.
I mean, if you want me to be racist, at least get it right.
Chinese people don't say hello with R's. That's a Japanese stereotype. And we don't all talk like Bruce Lee.
So she can do martial arts.
Cicely Giddings, Abukar Salim and Yenis Chung in Chinese Burn. Meanwhile, the American Chinese sitcom Fresh Off the Boat has just started showing here in the UK on 5 Star. Now, that's co-written by American comedian Ali Wong, who's got a popular stand-up show on Netflix, which, like her sitcom scripts, takes on many East Asian stereotypes.
Asian American men are very underrated. I don't know why people don't go for them. They're the sexiest. Asian men are the sexiest. They got no body hair from the neck down. It's like making love to a dolphin.
Ali Wong. Well, to discuss the portrayal of Chinese characters on TV, I'm joined now by the actor, writer and director David Tse Ka-Shing and the Chinese Burn co-creator Shin-Fei Chen. Shin-Fei, you and your co-writer are both actors. How much of this was written out of frustration for the kind of roles available to you?
So Yenis, my co-writer, and I, we actually did have a good amount of these experiences that you just listened to. As you can probably hear, I have a little bit of an American accent, but I would say half the time I go into castings, I have to put on a Chinese accent. And sometimes it's not Chinese enough, even when I put on a Chinese accent. And when it comes to Yenis, she's expressed many frustrations she usually gets cast for the prostitute, the takeaway girl, the illegal immigrant. She actually was cast in a film where she was all 3 of those. and
I was really intrigued by your character in this series because I'd never seen a Chinese woman in this sort of role. So you've got this rubbish job, advertising tea, but she really dreams of becoming a sommelier. Where did that come from?
A few things. So I personally really love wine, and I do have a hobby job. Selling wine, but in addition, I'm one of my best friends. She is a little bit like Liz. She was the smartest kid in school when she was young. Her parents really wanted her to go to Harvard, and we all aspired to be like her. And one day in high school, she just cracked, and she just started making the worst life choices. And so some of the inspiration is from that. And I also do have other East Asian friends, many actually, who do have parents who, make them do piano or ballet, and all these things we can just talk about,
and they just rebel against all of them.
Yeah, I mean,
like your character who sort of gets drunk, sleeps with unsuitable men, has terrible jobs, and so
exactly.
On. But also the comedy really struck me as quite physical.
Yes, so. Both Yenis and I, we lived in East Asia, and she grew up in Hong Kong, and we're both very much inspired by the Hong Kong physical comedy slapstick. Like Stephen Chow is one of our biggest inspirations. So he did films like Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle. And I think physical comedy, it just transcends all language barriers. Whether you're in America, in Africa, in Asia, and you see something physical and funny, you'll laugh at it. You don't need to understand the language. So a lot of our comedy is that, and people can laugh at Liz being in a big boba cup suit, rolling on the ground and not being able to get up.
David, do you welcome the increased visibility of Chinese faces on television?
Absolutely. I think growing up in this country since the age of 6, I think there's been such a dearth of East Asian faces, Chinese and otherwise. And I still today, I look at EastEnders or I listen to the Archers and I think, why isn't there a British Chinese family on EastEnders? There's such a large concentration of Chinese people in the UK and particularly in London. And many of us grew up in sort of rural communities. I grew up in Leominster in Herefordshire. So, we're sort of, a lot of us those of us who are from sort of takeaway backgrounds, have grown up in small market towns. So again, on the Archers, why isn't there a regular British Chinese person there? There's an Indian lawyer. There's a South African, yes, a Bulgarian, yes,
because we should say that. In Shin-Fei's program, and none of them are British Chinese. We don't really see British Chinese, do we?
I guess they were writing from their own experience. So
somebody's got to write the British Chinese sitcom.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people are. There are lots of young British Chinese writers and actors out there who are writing that sitcom at the moment. Whether they get their foot through the door is another matter, but I think the more that can be encouraged, the better.
Let's talk about stereotypes, because Shin-Fei, you set out to smash stereotypes, and yet I have to say that the Chinese men in your show are not. They're basically all portrayed as kind of a bit wimpy. That's a stereotype, isn't it?
It is. I think for us, we want to in order to smash stereotypes, you kind of have to offer it up first. And in terms of one of the characters, he's there to kind of actually pinpoint Jackie's racism, because sometimes within the East Asian community itself,
because Jackie, one of the characters, sort of says that she'll only date white men.
Yeah. So she has a white fetish. So he kind of highlights her racism, and Liz tells Jackie, hey, you're being a racist.
David, how prevalent are these stereotypes about Chinese men?
I think they're incredibly prevalent. I think the history of colonialism has meant that actually East Asian women have been over-sexualized and East Asian men have been desexualized, asexualized. And I think there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration out there amongst East Asian actors because they just want to be shown in all their humanity. And that includes being full, complex sexual beings, whether they're straight, gay, bi, whatever. There is that rich diversity of humanity. And so often only one trope is pushed.
But sometimes stereotypes can be quite funny, and I suppose like the mother in Fresh Off the Boat is a classic Chinese tiger mum. There's comedy in a pushy mum stereotype, isn't there? There is,
and I think that particular trope is quite. Elements of that exist in Confucian culture, and there's. Asian Americans are overrepresented in the Ivy League colleges, and they are the highest succeeding, in terms of academic
but underrepresented on television.
In other things.
David Tse Ka-Shing and Shin-Fei Chen. Sorry, that's all we've got time for. And you can watch the pilot episode of Chinese Bayern online as part of BBC Three's Comedy Slice initiative. Let's hope it gets commissioned. Now, there are some films which are so terrible